We didn't want to interrupt your conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's take a couple minutes. I have a sort of prepared speech. I'd like to be able to kind of do this spontaneously if I can. And we'll introduce ourselves as well, and invite you to do the same. So anyway, so as you're hopefully aware, in this part of the competition, you're taking a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges as well. Please make sure you do that. Okay, we had a team earlier today that did not. So tell us who we are. Please make sure everyone knows who you are. And like I said, who we are before we begin, okay? We'll have 25 minutes for the presentation portion. Actually, it'll be 30 total, so if you need an extra 5 minutes, that's okay. I'll keep time. And I'll ask you during that time to describe the legal, the financial, and the ethical dimensions of the problem. Please define your problem well, okay? And to recommend a solution that passes muster on all three counts, ethical, financial, and legal, okay? During the time, teams will be uninterrupted, so we will not interrupt you. We will listen attentively. When you are finished, the judges will ask you questions for 20 minutes. And during the Q&A, both yourselves and these two gentlemen and myself, we will continue to sort of stay in character as you assign us. After the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside the role playing. So I'll sort of declare, okay, we're done, and then we'll discuss how things went and so on, okay? Some important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspects of your analysis are the most important part. However, these should be described in a simple, practical, common sense fashion. Using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness. Similarly, any member of the team reading his or her part will also be considered a major mistake, although you may use notes, okay? During the presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. Any questions? Make sense? Good stuff. Okay, my name is Kevin Harrington. I'm the director of the R&D product development effort at Acorn Pharmaceuticals. We're a small pharma company in the Midwest. You probably haven't heard of us, but if you've taken Sudafed, you're familiar with one of our products. We make ephedrine, which is the active ingredient in Sudafed. Okay? I've been doing judging and participating in the competition for several years. I enjoy it a lot, okay? Inevitably, almost every team I see, I look and say, wow, I couldn't have done that when I was their age. So I think you guys do a great job preparing, and I look forward to, always learn something from the time we spend together.
Scott Tiano. I live here in Los Angeles, and I work for a family service firm which manages the wealth of the wealth and interests of a private family here in LA. And I've not judged on IBECC before, so I'm looking forward to seeing the presentation.
I'm Doral. I am a California CPA since 1980. I am also a professor at Loyola Marymount University. I teach cost management and analytics. I have judged this competition for 21 years.
Yeah, why don't you stand up front and introduce yourselves.
So we are the Doral Ethics Advisory Network, and we'll be addressing the Board of Directors of ETP.
We'd just like to make sure, of course, and make sure that this is in compliance with the IBECC standards. Are we allowed to have a timer that we can see in order to judge the...
Yeah, that would be helpful. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and start that up?
So we're going to place a timer
Good.
and begin once we start.
Okay. If we're writing or not making eye contact, we're trying to take notes or write down things. We're not drawing pictures of you or anything like that during the time, okay?
Okay.
Okay, good stuff. If you're ready to begin, we are as well.
Okay, so we are, as my partner stated, we are the Doral Ethical Advisory Network. We are here to advise the Energy Transfer Partners, is the company in charge of Dakota Access LLC, which was in charge of building the Dakota Access Pipeline that runs through North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, and Illinois. You are the board of ETP, and we are here to advise you on what happened during the Dakota Access Pipeline,
Right, so
and what you can do for the future.
we'll start the timer now.
Sounds good.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Board of Directors, for giving us the Doral Ethics Advisory Network the opportunity to advise you, energy transfer partners, in your recent endeavors. My name is Valentina Aguilar, the Research Director.
I'm Adriana Arcia, the ethical consultant.
I'm Santiago Arias, I'm the legal advisor.
I'm Brian Levy, the financial consultant.
And today we will be going over and resolving the long and short-term issues found with your involvement in the Dakota Access Pipeline. Perform, deliver, grow. These are the three words that your company prides itself in exemplifying. However, your company's recent involvement in a high-profile case falls short of this motto. Over the past 2 years, your company, who began the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline, and the Sioux Natives, who have been opposing it, have been in an ongoing dispute. The Natives have also gone as far as suing the Army, filing a lawsuit against the Army Corps of Engineers for beginning the construction of this pipeline. The tribe, along with many protesters, have been very vocal about their opposition, and this has all been caused by 4 major concerns. First off, the Dakota Access Pipeline crosses disputed tribal lands. It threatens the environmental integrity of Lake Oahe. It may disturb sacred Sioux relics such as burial sites, and it overall has a questionable benefits. As you can see here, this is Lake Oahe, the lake which the Dakota Access Pipeline will go through. Lake Oahe is the primary source of drinking water, therefore it has the potential of water contamination once the pipeline goes through it. The media has also released articles that question the profitability of the Dakota Access Pipeline, such as what's to gain from building the Dakota Access Pipeline. The Twitter movement called #DefundTAPL has encouraged people to pull their support from the banks who invest in the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. And this has all led to violent protesters who have caused injuries and even deaths. So this all comes down to one question. How can your organization pursue the construction of the pipeline ethically while cultivating stakeholder relationships? We have come up with a solution called the New Leaf Initiative, which enhances stakeholder engagement, which your company failed to do at the beginning of this conflict. With stakeholder engagement, your company will be ready to act, make informed decisions, promote transparency and accountability, and overall bring together the diverse perspectives of the stakeholders involved in this company. It would also cause lasting change. We have broken down our solution, the New Leaf Initiative, to three parts, both in short and long-term aspects. By renovating and expanding the development of domestic oil infrastructure, by investing in reactive and proactive technologies, and by, most importantly, creating the Affected Groups Committee, who would enhance engagement and develop and enhance thoughtful project development. First off, the development of domestic oil infrastructure. Your company has been using outdated materials that have been dated back to the 1950s. Thus, this may cause problems with pipeline erosion and potential harm to Lake Oahe. By renovating these materials, it would ultimately expand the domestic oil production, which would create greater energy independence for our country, and again, make more favorable stakeholder relationships. Furthermore, we have divided the investment in sustainable technologies to 2 parts, the reactive technology and proactive technology. With reactive technology, your company will be prepared for mechanical failures and the potential of oil spills. Therefore, by renovating the materials which we had previously talked about, we would be prepared for any potential oil spills. With proactive technology, your company will focus on alternative methods that are less harmful to the environment and more sustainable for your company. An example of the reactive technology would be the sponge created by the Oregon National Laboratory. This sponge not only will collect oil in a case of an oil spill, it would also allow for the oil to be reused, making it eco and cost-friendly. And most importantly, the Affected Groups Committee, which my partner Adriana Arcia would go more into depth about. But overall, this Affected Groups Committee would enhance engagement, which would create avenues for open discourse, and create stronger bonds between your stakeholders, and it would create a thoughtful project development. Thus, with stakeholder interaction, your company and future endeavors will be able to act upon any possible issues instead of acting after they have happened. And now to Santiago Arias, who will discuss the legal dimensions of work.
Thank you. So, after a comprehensive legal review, we have found that your company, for the most part, did follow the minimal legal requirements to build the pipeline. But it is not in your company's best long-term interest to only seek the standard of simple legal compliance. This standard has caused you to be involved in expensive litigation that isn't even directly your own for many cases, but that you bore all the public blame for. Now, I will be discussing briefly 4 legal issues that were pertinent to the construction of the pipeline and how each of them could have been resolved with comprehensive stakeholder engagement like the one we're recommending in our presentation today. The first issue is the National Historic Preservation Act. The NHPA was passed to protect cultural and historical artifacts from being destroyed during construction projects. Now, the issue with the DAPL was on sacred Native American artifacts that were potentially on the route. So, in order to manage this, your company hired state archaeologists and worked with the Army Corps to try to find these sites. But non-tribal archaeologists often lack the expertise to properly identify these sites. Because of this, sacred Native American relics were destroyed, and there was a hostile relationship with the Native Americans that formed because of it. Had your company engaged with the Native Americans beforehand and learned about this issue and actively worked with the Native Americans, as you can see here, they could have discovered this and prevented what happened. The second issue is the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act was passed to protect waterways from environmentally dangerous projects. The Army Corps was supposed to find whether your company was in compliance with it. And they did. They found it was safer than other alternatives, and they found it was safe in itself to pass into Lake Oahe and other waterways. But they only have jurisdiction over 3% of your whole pipeline, and therefore cannot accurately assess the environmental impact that this can have on your stakeholders and your finances, because you are required to have reserve funds in case of an oil spill under the Oil Pollution Act. Had you engaged your stakeholders before the construction, taking this into account, you could have been alerted to environmentalist concerns, but you could have addressed this before it even became an issue. And you could have informed them of the real environmental impacts of your pipeline and not the falsities that are being purported through the media. The third issue is the issue of the Fort Laramie Treaty. The Fort Laramie Treaty was an 1851 land grant by the United States to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, granting them a large portion of land. In this picture, you can see how it has been reduced, and has been reduced wrongfully and illegally. The Supreme Court decided in a case in the 1980s that this was wrongfully and illegally seized, and that it should still be their land, but could not give it back to them. They offered them recompensation, which they did not take. So, even though this will not end up in a courtroom, this should have been taken into account. This is a very important aspect of the debate today. This is essential to the issue of Native American oppression and subjugation in the United States that has been going on for centuries. Because of the lack of consideration for this, your company was thrust into expensive litigation with the Native Americans, not necessarily over this issue, but over the issues of Native American oppression as a whole. And the Dakota Access Pipeline has become the symbol for Native American oppression in the United States in the 21st century. And it has spawned unprecedented scale of Native American protest, but also Native American litigation against your company. There's also briefly the issue of unlicensed dog handlers hired for security of the pipeline. However, this would not and should not be necessary for when protecting your pipeline, because you would have engaged your stakeholders previously and had addressed their concerns in a boardroom and not out in the fields or in a courtroom. This connects back to the New Leaf Initiative through primarily the creation of the Affected Groups Committee. The Affected Groups Committee is going to be a window to the concerns of these communities, but also offer two-way communication and will actively change our policies. The Affected Groups Committee works with outreach, research, and communication with your various stakeholder groups that you have, including Native Americans, your employees, activists, the government, and others. What the Affected Groups Committee will facilitate is for the company to always be informed in the issues of their stakeholders, and without this program, you will be again thrust into expensive litigation costing millions of dollars, your public image being smeared as another big oil company trying to see what it can get away with, and it will compromise the company of your value as an investment for banking investors. Speaking of investment, I will now pass it on to the financial expert of the group, Mr. Brian Levin.
You're at the forefront of a market that is primed for tremendous growth. However, your failure to factor in the various stakeholder variables into your business decisions has raised some very troublesome financial questions. We believe that a holistic appreciation of the whole business environment is essential for allowing burgeoning opportunities to prosper. Some areas of concern are a decline in Bakken oil production. The Bakken is the region serviced by your Dakota Access Pipeline. A negative public perception as a result of poor public relations, and the potential risk of these threats to your financial backers. Your pipeline was earmarked for construction in 2014, the peak year for domestic oil production within the United States. Following the 2008 initial boom in domestic oil production as a result of new oil technology allowing oil drillers to access previously untapped resources, particularly in the Bakken region. This all-out expansion of domestic production created a demand for expanded infrastructure. Midstream services such as your pipeline were in high demand, and your company sought to capitalize on this demand in order to expand domestic oil infrastructure across the United States and decrease our foreign dependence on oil. However, following the peak, there was a sharp drop in the price of domestic oil production as a result of a supply glut and oversaturation of the market. It dropped to half of what it was in 2014. And this brings into question the profitability of your pipeline, whether or not it is a superfluous addition to the infrastructure. At its peak, the Bakken was producing 3 million barrels a day with enough existing infrastructure in the form of pipelines and local refineries to process 2.5 million of those barrels. And now currently it's only producing 900,000. This, coupled with mounting political opposition and public outcry, poses a direct threat to your risk management. It is essential that your company properly assesses in a proactive manner the risk, therefore averting any potential risk in the future and managing it on your own terms before it gets out of hand. It is better to engage with the opposition instead of driving them out into the public eye and allowing the issue to get out of hand and beyond your control. Such campaigns as Defund DAPL were started to directly confront your financial backers. The production of the pipeline is a $3.78 billion construction project. $2.5 billion of that is funded by 17 banks, and the remainder is funded by 49% stake sold to Enbridge and Marathon Oil. Companies such as ING, a Norwegian bank, sold off their loan in order to avert any negative backlash in the form of potential clientele divesting their investment in their bank. Other companies such as DNG ASA, a Danish company, said that they would use their position as your financier to leverage your political position in response to the Sioux Tribe protests. Ignoring public outcry, the voice of concern in the communities you serve is devastating, and it is a recipe for disaster. If you don't properly engage with those affected by your company's operations, any future development is bound to fail. Which is why we believe that a holistic approach of the overall playing field and every character involved in your business's operations is imperative. Our our New Leaf initiative, by catalyzing domestic oil infrastructure, we are effectively securing your position in the future of U.S. energy. The problem arises with your company when there's not enough oil to move through the infrastructure you're creating and developing. By catalyzing U.S. oil production in the market that is already primed for future development, you will be expanding your reach in the U.S. market. And also investing in the future of tomorrow. By funding the energy of the future, you will be securing your position for years to come. And as I said before, the creation of the Affected Groups Committee is imperative to engaging with those affected by your operations. You must maintain a constant touch on the pulse of the communities you are participating in and affecting. Every operation you participate in and every development of future pipelines affects people, and their unbounded expression of that can have potential risks to your company's financial stability.
Yeah, there used to be two on.
Yes, let me just click.
It appears that the computer is frozen.
No, there.
So, as I've said, that the market took a drop. The market took a drop following the 2014 boom in production. However, the U.S. Energy Information Administration predicts that by the year 2022, the price of the West Texas Index Intermediate, which measures the price per barrel of oil produced in the United States, would have reached a range of $65 to $78 per barrel, which is essential, and it's prime real estate for expanding the U.S. domestic oil market, and it makes it highly profitable for local refineries and midstream service providers. Your company has taken steps in this direction, such as this 2014 document outlining plans to expand domestic infrastructure in order to decrease our foreign dependence on oil. Your merger with Sunoco demonstrates your position to expand U.S. domestic oil infrastructure in a unified effort to increase domestic total output. And your conversion of natural gas pipelines to move crude oil from the Dakota Axis to the domestic refineries in the Gulf Coast shows your dedication to this. So the New Leaf initiative is constant. But the only thing more constant would be to neglect those groups affected. In order to secure your position, you need to take every factor, every variable of your operations into account. Any neglected group is a potential risk to your financial stability. Now I'll pass it off to the ethical consultant.
Thank you. So I'll be discussing four main ethical issues. First of all, your company needs to fulfill its responsibility to its stakeholders or to its shareholders to maintain its public image. I'll be talking about the concept of environmental justice, your commitment to value stakeholder relations, and your expanding and upholding your current ethical code. To begin with, think about it.
The computer freezes, so.
Okay. So publicity management is one of the main responsibilities your company has to its shareholders. You've worked painstakingly to build your reputation, and negative public representation negatively impacts your investors, your brand equity, consumer trust, and your reputation. One of the main things that's smearing your public image is these accusations of environmental racism. The concept of environmental justice essentially says that all people, regardless of race, religion, country of origin, ethnicity, deserve to have equal access to environmental amenities and also deserve to equally shoulder the burden of environmental threats such as landfills or pipelines. As it stands now, race and wealth are the most significant predictors of a person's likelihood to live in an area with high water, air, or soil contamination. And Native Americans in particular are vulnerable to these sorts of environmental injustices. Though they only represent 1.7% of the population, their poverty rates hover at around 28%, and their unemployment rates are at a staggering 49%. Some of these numbers are double the national average. So it's important to understand this concept when realizing why your stakeholders react so strongly to these sorts of environmental justice threats. Your company's pattern of behavior of rerouting away from Bismarck citing that it would be a threat to Bismarck's water supply, and then choosing to route towards the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and underneath Lake Oahe, which is their primary source of drinking water, does not reflect positively on your company's ability to uphold environmental justice standards. So your company's pattern of behavior currently reflects crisis management. And in order to prevent these such controversies from appearing in the future, we'd like to suggest your company move more towards stakeholder engagement mindsets. Right now, your company is vulnerable to the reactions of your stakeholders. Your company's reactions to your stakeholders are purely episodic. You engage with your stakeholders when something goes wrong, when there's a crisis, or when there's an emergency. Stakeholder engagement is regular, and it's consistent, and it involves consistent and internal monitoring of the mindset of your stakeholders. It's inclusive, and it encourages them to air their concerns and voice their dissent. The fact that you engage with your stakeholders on an episodic basis creates a hostile relationship between your stakeholders. They are only interacting with you when something's very wrong. Stakeholder engagement, on the other hand, is irregular, so they're able to voice all concerns consistently. And stakeholder engagement is prepared to change. In order to move towards stakeholder engagement, you must prove to your stakeholders that you value your relationship with them. You must respect their dissent. Environmental groups are likely to oppose the actions of large oil companies like yourself. And respecting their dissent is still important. They're still a stakeholder group, though they may disagree with some of your actions. As we've seen, exposing them to tear gas, water cannons, pepper spray, unlicensed dog handlers doesn't exactly reflect positively on your company's ability to manage stakeholder relations. Furthermore, your company must affect change and be willing to allow the input of your stakeholders to meaningfully influence policy and decision making. And your stakeholders must be aware of this in order for them to be able to trust your company's ability to use their input in a meaningful way. So what has your company done to mitigate these conflicts? Currently, your company's stakeholder responsibility page is summarized on one web page tab in your website. It claims that the following guidelines have and continue to guide your engagement, and you've adopted the America's Natural Gas Transporters Commitment to Landowners, which obligates you to negotiate with your landowners in good faith. The guidelines that you say that you respect and consider all people of all cultures, and that you're willing to allow stakeholder input to be affected, to affect your project decision, and that you operate within the rule of law. In some of our research, we've conducted some carbon dating, and we found that this page dates back to February 6th of 2017. Amongst other shortcomings, stakeholders have been voicing their concerns since April of 2016, and this reactive behavior is typical of crisis management mentalities that we suggest you steer away from. Furthermore, the focus on landowners is limiting to your ethical viability. We would suggest that you expand this ethical code to include other stakeholder groups, such as environmentalists, Native American communities, local communities, and the like. Furthermore, as we've seen before, this has not been consistently upheld, and your company's inability to provide a detailed outline or a plan of action is vague, and it does not allow for a lot of accountability on your part. So our Effective Groups Committee is attempting to bridge that gap between your current ethical code and a holistic stakeholder engagement program. It's modeled after the EPA's 4 dimensions of effective environmental justice and engagement, which involves creating opportunities for discourse. Like I mentioned, creating a platform for discourse to be comfortable and open and consistent. Openness to change, which involves allowing your stakeholders to influence your policy. This requires buy-in from the highest corporate levels to the lowest paid employee, and a commitment to changing corporate culture and mindset. It involves equal involvement of all stakeholder groups, from the smallest and least vocal to the largest and the loudest. And it requires your company to facilitate and seek out these opportunities for discussion and involvement, and not simply expect your stakeholders to come to you with their concerns. So like I said, it involves stakeholder groups like shareholders, clients, landowners, Native Americans, employees, environmental activists, and the government, and representatives from each of these groups would be leaders of these subcommittees. So the nationwide scope and year-round qualities of the Effective Groups Committee would be an active part in preventing controversies such as the Dakota Access Pipeline controversy from occurring again. So this active community involvement would require these leaders to conduct research and actively seek out the current state of your stakeholders, and then drafting reports about what they're finding, about what the stakeholders are needing and what they're concerned with, and later informing and engaging them through public forums and town hall meetings. So to recap, our New Leaf initiative involves the renovation and expansion of domestic oil infrastructure, reactive and proactive technologies, investing in reactive and proactive technologies, and the creation of an Effective Groups Committee to both engage your stakeholders and then promote thoughtful project development in the future. So finally, our New Leaf initiative aims to encompass your promise to perform, deliver, and grow. Now, as a board of directors, you're probably wondering how much will this cost and can we afford it? Stakeholder engagement programs such as these are costly, but the only thing that's more costly than stakeholder engagement is crisis management. As it stands now, your shareholder value is bleeding, your reputation is at risk, your inability to effectively engage stakeholders on a consistent basis has caused injuries and led to the destruction of lives. And if your company is not willing to muster the courage necessary to effect lasting change and be a leader within your industry, then it will continue to destroy lives. Thank you.
Very good. Adrian, a question. So in the context of your discussion, and strong points throughout, are there examples of other industry players, either drillers, refiners, etc., who may be someone for whom our company can look to or seek to buy in terms of their approach to similar challenges?
Well, actually, one of the most unique parts of this engagement program is that the oil industry itself there's not a high propensity to engage with stakeholders on a consistent basis. So your company has the unique opportunity to be a leader in the oil industry. And we've modeled it after the EPA's suggestion of what environmental justice should be. But your company is in a unique position to be one of the, at the forefront of this engagement movement.
So this is a systemic issue for the industry?
Yes.
Okay.
If I may add some more to
Yes.
it, the research that we have done on the legal side has concluded that many of these companies haven't attempted programs similar to this. However, the programs were very weak because they lacked the input of the company as a whole, and they were not properly seen through, which is why we specifically outline the specifics of the program in order to avoid this from happening. Many also use things called CRM programs, which have a high failure rate of managing the different opinions of various stakeholders, and there's been new programs that come out. However, these programs have been proven ineffective with rates over 50% of failure. So this is why we propose our solution based off of those failures.
Also, the future growth of the industry is dependent on compassionate expansion of the infrastructure and the production of the oil production drills and midstream services. So it does depend a lot on this new drive towards stakeholder engagement in order to operate effectively in a high political climate and increase opposition to oil companies.
Okay. So no other examples in the industry. How about other industries that have faced similar challenges in terms of they present a risk to the public in some form or shape, and they have exemplified, as you've suggested, stakeholder engagement as a mechanism by which they identify, engage, co-op, and consequently partner with stakeholders to manage the risk in the ethical issues. Are there any other examples in other industries?
Well, I know one specific example that Coca-Cola has a stakeholder engagement program that they've divided into public and private stakeholders, and they use this because like the cane farmers for the sugar that they have to put in their products, and the public in terms of their actual consumers. Their stakeholder engagement program has been very effective, and they are very proud of it. It's called the Golden Triangle. They love it.
What assumptions, if any, did you make in your presentation?
May I ask for some clarification?
So, in the analysis that you did of our company, in the research that you conducted, was there anything that was inconclusive that made you assume things to draw a conclusion in your recommendations to us?
Our solution as a whole was based off of the failures that resulted from the Dakota Access Pipeline protocols and ethical structures. For the most, we didn't really use any assumptions because of the fact that all of our numbers were based off of legal statutes. In the financial, they're based off of the hard, raw numbers performed by expert financial consultants, and in terms of ethical, based off of long-standing ethical theories on business, on conducting business.
I think the only assumption that I would say is that in order for this to be effective, we assume that the company, or there will be buy-in within the company, from the highest corporate levels to the lowest levels. Like, in order for this to be effective, the entire corporate culture has to shift mentality, and I think that's perhaps the biggest assumption.
Another major difficulty we faced when analyzing the situation is trying to determine the incentive that your company had for developing the pipeline, seeing as there was a risk of it being financially unstable. Through our research, we were able to find out that your company was under contractual obligation to complete construction of the pipeline by January 1st, 2017, in order to, or else risk loss of potential oil clientele, oil drillers that have bought stakes in the pipeline to ship oil to refineries domestically. Also, there was the issue of tax breaks. U.S. companies that develop domestic oil infrastructure are privy to tax benefits in order to continue to expand U.S. domestic oil infrastructure and to decrease our dependence on foreign oil.
How would you recommend we prioritize our engagement with stakeholders through your affected groups committee?
So prioritizing it, I would say...
Who would we reach out to first, and why would we reach out to them first over another group?
Well, I think one of the most important things about the stakeholder engagement project is equal involvement, which is the EPA was very adamant about proposing that. We don't want to prioritize any one group of people's or any one person's needs over another, but I would say that perhaps the very first people that we would engage with is the Native American communities, because of them being the most directly involved in this sort of controversy. But I think it's important to emphasize that all of these stakeholder groups are equally important.
Another major stakeholder that we must engage are environmentalist activists. Environmentalist activists are notorious for being completely against big oil companies and oil in general. However, we really want to change that for our company. Environmentalists there's always the attitude in a lot of big oil companies that, oh, environmentalists are always going to be a problem. Environmentalists are just business as usual and a mild inconvenience. However, these are people who actively care about the environment, but they also are threats to our company if we continue to run in such an unruly fashion. We want to work with them to take their concerns into account and work to better ourselves as a company and be a leader, to be an environmentally friendly oil company and change this the terrible relations that these two sides have come against in the past decades.
Also, since this is an anticipatory maneuver to try to take a proactive approach to assuaging any public opposition and potential risk to our company, it is important to process value-added analysis in order to properly assess who those potential opposers are. Because instead of just ignoring them and allowing them to voice their opinions in direct opposition to your company's operations, it is imperative to possess that understanding of the entire business environment in order to properly assess who's in most need of engagement.
So if the budget was not unlimited and we had to pick one or two, and I appreciate that everybody is a priority, but if we couldn't afford to do that, who would you recommend that we focus on first and second?
Analyzing the Dakota Access Pipeline, specifically, which has become our most recent issue, the most affected groups currently are Native Americans, who are actively protesting at an unprecedented scale. Not only the Great Standing Rock Sioux Tribe, but other tribes come together. The environmentalists, who have been what caused millions of dollars in property damage, and the landowners who were involved in a lawsuit, specifically the landowners in Iowa, that for accusing the Dakota Access Pipeline of abusing eminent domain. These three are perhaps the most important because they are the most affected ones that came from the Dakota Access Pipeline.
And ethically, that would be our best bet as well.
Ethically, yes, because the actual main accusation against your company is a problem of environmental racism, and that they moved away from Bismarck and their water supply towards the Standing Rock Sioux's water supply, which is, I think, the most grotesque environmental problem that arose from this issue. So if we were to remedy the main, ethical shortcoming, I think that would make sense.
Now, do you think that our main problem will be solved by public relation approach, or do we have any operational changes to make to address the issues that also involve the ethical aspects of the problem?
So the affected groups committee, while a part of it is that they have to manage their public relations issues, the main part of it is preventing these sorts of crises from happening in the first place. If through open engagement and open communication, we would be better able to understand the problems that could arise. Like, for example, the sacred relics or the Native American burial sites. If your company was aware of this problem beforehand, there perhaps would not have been the destruction of these sacred sites, which made the tensions between the two groups more hostile and harder to remedy, and it's harder to get people to feel encouraged to engage with us and work with us and cooperate if they think that we don't value something as important as their religion.
Ignoring proactive risk management is devastating to your company. Not situating yourself in the most prosperous position in relation to your stakeholders will drastically affect your bottom line. But it's also about procedural decisions that your company will have to make as far as catalyzing domestic oil infrastructure to ensure that your development is positive for U.S. energy development.
Also, the leaders of these committees would be in charge of conducting research within the communities that they serve in order to gauge the state of the stakeholder relations, and then draft reports and again inform and engage their stakeholder groups in order to create an open discourse.
For now, the biggest challenges for the Dakota Access Pipeline have already been passed. The oil is planned to flow on May 14th, and however, a lot of this presentation is concerning the future of Dakota Access Pipeline, and that's why we divided our our solution between short-term and long-term. Yeah, we wanted to emphasize that yes, we do need to do some things now, but the majority of what we need to do is going to be in the long term, because none of these solutions will take place today or tomorrow. A lot of crisis management, the PR headlines, the CEO going on CNN, the Talcofax website have already been done, and this is looking towards the future in a proactive way.
Now, one more question I have in this affected group committee that we formed. There are members of that committee, perhaps, that we have irreconcilable differences with. How do we address those issues?
I think that there's no inherent need to dichotomize two groups of people, like, for example, oil companies, environmentalist groups. The goal is to create a forum where these people are able to engage and interact and express their concerns comfortably. While environmentalist concerns are not always, or they're their goals are not always going to be completely in line with ours. We want to build a trusting relationship where we can work together to create projects in the future that are thoughtful and considerate of their concerns. I really don't think that there's a reason why we shouldn't be able to work with all of our stakeholders.
It's true that some groups will not be willing to work with us immediately, but however, it is in our best interest to attempt to do this. If it is true, and it is true, that the solution that we're proposing is going to be better and vital for the future of the company's project, we should attempt to engage them. Yes, it's true that perhaps the Standing Rock Sioux may not want to be in the program, and other environmentalist groups will refuse to. However, you know that at least one will attempt to bridge the gap, and then future, talking about nationally, other Native American tribes that we will be interacting with will attempt to manage this before we build a pipeline through there. By attempting to, we will slowly gain the trust of these communities, and will become leaders in our industry, even if immediately there's a lot of opposition from these groups.
Even if an affected group denies our efforts to engage with them, that itself is still valuable information that lends to understanding of our position in the market. It depends on this engagement with the community, and your company is required to manage all your stakeholders in order to create this overall understanding.
I have one more question. Santiago, you have a slide that shows a map of the Indian...
Am I allowed to scroll back?
Yeah, please do that, because I want to look at that slide with you together.
Okay.
The other one I'm referring to, it shows the Indian...
The proposed route.
Yes. I just want to look at that
There's
slide
two.
together.
Which one exactly?
Let's keep going, right? We haven't seen either one of them yet. Keep going, keep going. Let's have a map. Yeah, that's okay.
Yes,
Take me through the slide again, the Santiago.
Okay, so obviously I can't talk about. There's so much on this slide.
Yes, there is. Yep.
So my point of this slide was to first talk about, this is the proposed pipeline route. Up here you see the town of Bismarck. It was supposed to intend to go through here with the dotted line, which my partner brought up. This was the reroute that was done right here in Lake Oahe. Fort Yates was the water treatment plant, the old one for the Standing Rock Sioux. They were given a grant by the government to build a new water treatment down 50 miles down in Mobridge. This was very critical to our company's decision to move it there because of the fact that this is 20 miles down, this is 70 miles down. At the rate of the Mississippi River, which is 5 miles an hour, any potential oil spill that were to happen could be detected, would have to spend 14 hours for it to get there, and would give us time for emergency reaction. However, the oil spill is very unlikely, but if they were to come to it, we have enough time to react and give the Standing Rock Sioux a good warning. And their new water treatment plant is also state-of-the-art. It is one of the most advanced water treatment plants in the United States.
Excellent, thank you. Gentlemen, any other questions? Okay, we're out of our role play. Okay. You guys were outstanding. Really, really good. This is one of the best presentations I've seen in a while. Okay, so I'm going to talk with each of you about a couple of things. Okay, first of all, where is Doral?
It's in Miami, Florida.
You guys are in Miami. Okay, very good. Great start. Number one thing, tell me what the problem is right up front. If we don't know what the problem we're trying to solve is, we all get confused. And you really did that. You had me right away. Thank you for doing that. Don't drop that, okay? The other thing I like is you introduce your team members, okay, so make sure you introduce them and tell them what each of them is, because that sort of helps us as an audience understand how you fit together as a team. Teams are a puzzle until we understand how you work together, okay? One thing I ask you would avoid reading off your slides, okay? It's a temptation. I do it all the time, okay? I've been doing this for years. I still do it, but just be aware of when you're doing that, okay? And each of you, particularly Santiago, avoid it to end, and you. Avoid the tendency to talk too fast, okay? We tend to do that either when we're nervous or when we're trying to get out a lot of stuff and we feel time pressure. So just to manage that as well, okay? Command the room, it's your room, okay? So there's nobody telling you to go fast. They're not going to take the microphone away, okay? Santiago, outstanding. One of the things I enjoy about participating in these is I learn things, and I always love it when people teach me things, okay? And I feel like I know this topic so much better. I used to work in the nuclear power industry. I'm familiar with, and I used to work in the chemical industry, so I'm familiar with a lot of the topics you guys touched on. But I really like the way you took me through this map, because this is a busy thing. There's a lot of distracting stuff on here. And you did a good, excellent job of calling attention to the right points of the map without letting the other busyness or so forth, be a distraction. You knew your stuff, okay? As you speak, kind of like Valentina, I want you to be more deliberate about slowing down a little bit and making your points. One of the things all three of you did, which was outstanding, is you would hear what the other had to say in Q&A, and you would add to it. And you would add to it in a complimentary, effective way, as opposed to a distracting way. Very good. I don't know if anyone taught you that or you just do that naturally, but that's excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, so please keep doing that. Brian, you are a superstar, okay? Really, really good public speaker. Just slow down a bit. You articulate really well. You have a great vocabulary. You connect with your audience well, okay? You make good eye contact. Keep doing all those things, just slow down a bit, okay? And I really like the way, as you interact with Santiago or with Adriana, each of you listened to each other. You weren't trying to be so preoccupied with what you wanted to say, but you would listen and see in a way that you served your audience well by adding to it in a complimentary, effective way. Adriana, you're outstanding in Q&A. Outstanding, okay? You also are a rock star. Two things. Do not sigh whenever anyone else is speaking, because it's distracting. Okay? And also just be conscious of what you're doing with your hands. You did it better during Q&A than you did during the presentation portion, okay? And similarly, Valentina, don't put your hands in your pockets. I do the same thing. It's better to keep them in front of you. Watch the way Brian, what he does with his hands, whether he realizes or not. It's sort of a prop for the way he's speaking, the way he draws attention to folks. You guys really knew your stuff, okay? You presented well and you were well organized. The other thing you also did really well was you stayed on your topic. This is a big topic. You could have easily gone off into the ethics or issues of drilling or fracking or other things that have to do with the oil industry. You stayed on topic. Good job on that as well. Okay? I enjoyed your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo a lot of what Kevin said, so I won't say it again. It's evident to me that you guys have really rehearsed this, and you've gone through it. Kevin mentioned you really seem to know the topic. When we were asking probing questions at the end, I felt like we got really good feedback and answers to our questions, which was nice. The transition between all of you from switching to speaking was seamless and I thought was really well. The one question I have, it's on the slide. It looked like a bunch of coding to me.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And so
Carbon dating of the-
that made me scratch my head, and you didn't spend a lot of time on it. And then as you kept going, I was thinking, well, was that something that I missed? And you kind of lost me at that point. And so the question is what was the purpose of that slide?
We carbon dated the stakeholder responsibility page.
So I don't even know what that means.
It's like to find out when they made it. And then
When they published the
when they
document.
publish
So
the page.
so then the question I would have is there an easier way to present it to us so we're not looking at that going, well, and then, because you didn't spend a lot of time on it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And it's not saying that there is a better way, maybe that's how you present it. I'm just asking, is there?
It's kind of like a
Timestamp?
hard-coded thing.
Okay. All right.
It's hard. I understand that it's maybe difficult to look at this and be like, oh yeah, I know what that is, but it's.
And maybe
just
I'm the only one up here that didn't understand it.
No,
but
it's just
you went through it
to
quick.
articulate the fact that they created the web page in February of this year, and this problem has
Been
on since April of last year.
Okay.
So that was the point of it.
All right.
I understand the criticism.
I like your presentation, especially the transition from one person to the other. It was very smooth and very natural. I appreciated that very much. I'm just going to follow up on the slide issue. If it's too much to read it with 1-2 seconds that we have, I think we should read it. I mean, we don't have to read everything or be able to read everything, but some of these slides were a little busy. Too many words, too many things to pay attention to. So maybe you want to simplify that aspect a little bit so you can see what's going on with one view of it. I would also recommend try to enunciate a little bit more. I think we can improve that aspect a little bit. You were trying to talk fast, slow down, and do the enunciation a little better. I have a hard time hearing it, so it gets more difficult when you go fast on that. Good presentation, good preparation. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, a couple other things. Brian, the financial part of this discussion, I think is challenging because it's not obvious. I like, you have two slides that I really like. One of them was that you talked about the projection for how domestic oil production is expected to increase over time. That underlines the importance of why this is an ongoing opportunity versus something that's missed. So nice work there.
Thank you.
The other point is, I'm going to go through to find the other slide, but the value of why domestic oil production has value overall. I appreciate this is a very broad-ranging topic, but I think you did a good job with that one as well, because I found myself transitioning out of Santiago's discussion, wondering what you were going to talk about the financial. And I was encouraged to see you looked at it in sort of a holistic sort of way. So that was you did a good job there also. Okay. Really good job, guys. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you for coming here and all the time and effort you spent. Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
So good luck going forward.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Nice work.
Yeah, really, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you.